On Radio Row, Dave Stevens again. Good morning, almost afternoon here as we start things again. We've had some great guests and, of course, some very moving and inspirational topics that we've talked about. But my favorite part of the Super Bowl, and it's been once a year, kind of a tradition, and we don't get together enough, but I want to bring in a good friend of mine, a guy that I covered when he was in the NFL with all the teams, two-time Super Bowl champion, but more importantly, what he does now off the field with the Water Boys and this amazing podcast that he's got going. So Chris Long joining me for a few minutes to talk a little football life. Chris, thanks a lot. And how are you, my friend?
Dave, what's up, my man? How are you?
I'm good. I'm a little tired. We had our game last night. I know you couldn't come in for it. You had intended to, but, obviously COVID restrictions, we're being smart. But, it's great to talk to you. It's always good to get together and just, pick your brain about what's going on in the world. But, your podcast is I watch the guys you get. I watch the topics you talk about. It's very, very fun. So, one, what's going on with it? And two, how did you even start this thing?
Yeah, Dave. Well, I hope the game went well, man. Again, next year I will be out there. There's no way I missed, 2-3 Super Bowls in a row. So I'll be out there. But the podcast has been good. It's been a thing that I could kind of replace the football grind with. I mean, we're doing 3 shows a week during the season. It's called Greenlight. Kind of pairing that with some of the Amazon work I'm doing keeps me very busy. A lot of good guests. We have a lot of football guests. We have a lot of non-football guests. And we like to BS and have fun. You know how that is, Dave, and this thing can get monotonous. So, our goal is when you're listening to our podcast, me, my co-host Macon, who I went to school with, my old teammate Nate Collins, who's on there. We call him Dr. Fax. Whether it's Reed, the producers, it's just guys hanging out. And I think that's kind of, people want to feel like they're in the room talking sports with their buddies, and that's kind of where we aim to be. So we got some great guests, but we BS a lot.
Well, you BS, but, in no joke, people don't respect that you are not just a dumb lineman. Like you are smart. You guys talk about intelligent topics. You guys go places that most podcasts won't, and you get those athletes and celebrities to open up and go a little different because it's not ESPN. You're not sensationalizing. You're not trying to pick on DUIs or anything like that. You're talking about these real topics, real things like what's going on with the brain. How can you rewire it? What does cannabis do for your system? I just had Kyle Turley talking about how it's changed his life. He's talked to the commissioner in the league, and they're ignoring what is happening with these chances to fix your brothers. So there's not suicide. So the CTE isn't killing the people that you worked in the trenches for. So, where do you get your topics and how much is that a drive to what you guys are doing?
Well, we definitely like to talk about serious topics when the time is right. Like there's things, we could probably talk about, traumatic brain injury all year round until they fix it. We could probably talk about, criminal justice reform. We could talk about all types of, serious, heavy topics, and we like to mix those in and pick our spots. And but when we go in, we go like all the way in, and so there's no half step in. We do talk about those issues, but we also like to have a lot of fun. And I think, what drives me is, like a lot of times Macon and myself won't even know what we want to talk about until the morning of the pod, especially when you do a bunch of them during the season. The news kind of beats you to the office and to the studio. So, you kind of just come in, we BS for an hour about maybe what we'd like to talk about, but that's the extent of our prep. Now in the off season, when you got to make up a lot more stuff to talk about, then we do more off the wall stuff, lists. We get into other sports, rankings, that sort of thing. The things that everybody does to keep the lights on in, the dead months of the football calendar, which there aren't many.
Yeah,
football does a really good job of monopolizing the year. So it's fun. I'm glad I'm a football podcaster because there's always football to talk about.
and it's great. I'm hoping that some somebody like Sirius or somebody's going to take that to the next level. I know you have a big following, but we need to get you on a network on. There's so many sports channels out there. If McAfee can be the highest paid punter and he's not in the game anymore, what's going on with Chris Long, a 2-time Super Bowl champion, man of the year from the NFL. Again, what you do with Waterboys, and real quickly, waterboys.org. What has COVID done to set you back, or have you guys been able to still make an impact?
We've still been able to make an impact. I've been pretty impressed with our team, and with kind of the resilience that we've showed. We've also had some new hires. New executive director Nancy Hopkins, Nicole Woody, who used to be with us, went to another job, and she's out in California, so it was kind of a matter of time for her to take another opportunity. So, we were really excited about all the work we did to get here, and Nicole has a great deal to do with that, as well as Kim, and then we hired new folks, Ryan, Nancy. The work we do is really important. It's always an emergency, even in a pandemic, even more so. But I also understand the fact that, like in the States, people are dealing with a brand new set of circumstances and challenges that affect their bottom line, and they can't give as much. Our job was just to show that we can keep the lights on, keep the train moving. There's still people who have disposable income to be able to give, and we appreciate them. But we also understand that a lot of people can't give. So, as we pull out of this pandemic, I think we're going to be, moving in the right direction. We got a big golf tournament coming up. We have, what else do we got going? Domestic water stuff has been really exciting. Pair that with the international, and then a lot of education work too, and a women's initiative, on the water side, which has been big, and we've had some big names involved in that. So we've kind of taken the opportunity to not look at it as a negative. You got to look at everything as a positive. Like there are challenges, and you have to look at things as an opportunity. And I think that's what we've tried to do, is say we're going to come out of this pandemic better than we did when we came into it, and we'll make the most of our circumstances.
And I know you never invite me to your golf tournament because
you're invited officially.
I heard because I have such a good handicap already that you won't let me in, and because I'm
no good, Dave.
I'm 3 under when I come out there already. So
Dave, book it. April 25th, Virginia. Let's go.
Oh, I love joking with you. And I was thinking about you when I took my son to Philly a couple of weeks ago. Just, the bond that we share, the time you would take after a game, getting on your knee, on your butt to talk to me. And, it was always that personal connection that I thought we had that I like to have with players, where we talk. We don't have to talk football. We can talk about how's your family, how's your kids. I don't care about next week's game. I care about what Chris Long is doing with his family during the pandemic. How are the kids mentally? So how have you been as a father through all this to try to give normalcy to your family up there?
Well, honestly, and first off, thank you, Dave. I mean, I always enjoyed seeing you after the games, man. It's good to have media members who are just cool, down to earth, and easy to deal with. And Dave's one of those guys. And of course, I always say this when we pop on. I never looked at you and was like, "Oh, Dave's any different than anybody else." I mean, you're doing your job like everybody else, and you're kicking ass at it. So, appreciate the kind words. And just, my family's why I retired, a lot of why I retired. I wanted to play a few more years maybe, but by the time my kids get to be, 3 and 5 now, I just couldn't imagine it. And I know a lot of guys do it. But when I had kids, was at a point in my career where, I had made my money, and I was just starting to finally realize the winning side of it. And at that point I said, well, there's some other things I could do here, but the time with my family is really important. So last couple of years been a big challenge. I've been working my ass off getting this podcast off the ground. And with anything, most of the work comes on the front end. So when I tell, my wife or my kids, I'm gone a lot today, but next year won't be as bad, or, it's just a process that you have to trust. And I'm really glad that things are lining up. Retirement's not easy. I think a lot of guys struggle with it. But, and at times I have, but my family's been a very important part of that.
Spending a few moments with a good friend, 2-time Super Bowl champion Chris Long, joining us. And of course, we are here live, Radio Row, all week. Again, thank you guys for your support. You can follow me, Dave Stephen Speaks, at davestevenspeaks.com, and see all the crazy things that I do. I always get a kick when I get a message or something from Chris when he's telling me how outlandish that is, or, trying to do stuff that a 16-year-old is trying. It's everything 7-second attention span on TikTok, and last night I did a race with Zion Clark, the fastest man with no legs, or fastest man on 2 arms in the world, and I was the slowest man on 2 arms. And we started a race.
How was he? Was he pretty fast?
He took off, and I stopped. I pulled out a beer and just started drinking it. I just thought that would be
that's good.
So,
yeah, that's good.
But Chris, you've been around the game, and I just quickly, as we wrap up, was your thoughts on Tom Brady's legacy. He was a teammate. He was also an opponent, and you're basically almost the same age, kind of. You could still be playing. You see him hanging it up.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on the end of that and what it meant to the NFL?
Yeah, it's funny. I was just talking to somebody about this yesterday. Like I retired at 33 or whatever it was, 34, and I felt like it was a little like I could have kept going. And Tom retiring early at 44, perspective, like relative to his skill set, how great he was to be 44 and to literally have 4 more years, maybe just watching him move in the pocket in that last game against the Rams. Now, like, he didn't play his best game throwing the football at times, but he had an incredible year. And he also looked young to me. I mean, he looked younger in that game than, pick a random game in New England in 2017. Watching him, from a mobility standpoint and just the fluidity of his movement, the things that usually I would judge an aging quarterback on, he was still looking really good. So I was shocked he retired. But it also speaks to the fact that everybody has their own shot clock, and there's just no way to know how you're going to feel until the season ends. I mean, like every year you feel differently at the end of the season, especially when you're older. And obviously something must have changed for him early, from the point early in the year when he said, like, I want to play a bunch more, to, at the end of the season. There are reports that actually, like, Tom Brady generally doesn't get scooped. You know what I mean? So for Tom to get scooped, and a bunch of people know that, meant that a good amount of people probably had that, relatively good amount of people had that idea. So whatever happened, I think he just made a decision. Maybe it's his family. Maybe it's some small injury we don't know about that's going to get worse. Maybe it's a whole host of things. Maybe he saw what things are like without Antonio Brown, Chris Godwin, maybe Gronk's retiring. Like, I don't know. So there's just so many things that go into a player's mind, and maybe he didn't see the future in Tampa for 4 more years and didn't want to switch, teams again. So
Right.
it's just so interesting. One day we'll know.
It's the end of an era, but you continue to do good stuff after your career. Tom is set for life with all his production companies and everything. But for you, what's been the best part? What's the best part about being a dad that you didn't get to be when you were playing?
Honestly, it's like every time you walk in the door, man, like there's always something to rush home about. I mean, that's fun. Like your kids run up and give you a hug and all that stuff. And I really do enjoy every waking minute with these dudes. I mean, they 3 and 5, they've changed a bunch in the last year. So, I mean, everything that anybody ever says about, hey, try to slow it down, it goes fast, like all that stuff is just, when people say something enough, sometimes there's nothing to it, but on that one, it's very true. And so, playing Mario Kart, like I played Mario Kart with my kids now. It's a lot of fun.
I do Call of Duty with my boys, so that's great. Well, Chris,
well, when mine get older, we'll do Call of Duty.
Yeah, or you and I can do it on together. That'd be kind of fun. So
yeah, let's do it.
Real quick, who's your pick? I'd be at a loss if I didn't put you on the spot.
You know what? To be honest, at this point in the week, I'm not positive. This could change. I think the Rams are better on paper, but some things I chalk up to, what quarterback do I trust more? That's not to say I don't trust Matt Stafford. I just feel like Cincy, and maybe I'm biased because I've been on a team that had that magic one postseason. Cincy feels like the team that's got some magic. I also don't think this game is as high scoring as some people think, and I think Cincy wins a close ball game. But I could be wrong. It's a long streak for Stafford with no turnovers.
And it's been a hell of a postseason.
Clean with the football.
It was fun to watch this postseason. Yeah. I mean, I think it brought football back almost like Maguire Sosa. It brought, it's like, wow, this is the best football. It's like hockey claims they have the best postseason. I'm like, not anymore.
Not after this year. This year was one for the books, however it ends on Sunday.
All right, Chris, always good to talk to you. Thank you. I can't wait to be in person and hug you and see you at some next thing that we come together, or, I'll caddy for you or something silly.
Golf.
So golf. All right, my friend, that is the legendary two-time Super Bowl champion, Chris Long. Waterboys.org. You can still contribute and still help, even though we're not doing the big push like we normally do, Chris. You're still doing good stuff. So thank you, my friend. And the podcast, where can they watch it? Where can they watch the podcast, and where can they find you?
YouTube is Greenlight Tube, and then Greenlight's on anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, the whole thing.
All right. Take care. Give my best to everybody.
Thanks,
and
Dave. See you,
thank
buddy.
you, Reed. Wherever Reed is out there, thank you, Reed, for putting this together, and for my kids at Quinnipiac. So this is Dave Stevens at Radio Row, and you guys have been here, and we're going to continue to have the guests. We got Lee Steinberg coming up at 12:45. So stay with us right here. Ability Media, live from Radio Row.